Well, friends, chapter 3 of the book of Ruth, it indeed reads like an instruction for biblical seduction, including instructions like wash yourself, put on a perfume, dress yourself the best dress, and it goes even further. In the Hebrew language and within the context of the ancient Near East culture, it is clear as bell what is going on here. And that is, of course, part of life. I'm not going to uncover for you or dissect or exegete what is there. I don't want to make a sermon into pornography script. It is refreshing, on the other hand, to observe that the Bible is not prudish. Within its own world, it can openly speak about sexuality and even seduction. But it is not what I want to preach about today, because I am convinced that in this chapter, there is a highly relevant message for us today. You need to understand that when I came to America, I came as someone educated in theology and anthropology from Europe. It was a European education, and I was completely ignorant and unprepared for the local evangelical and cultural political discourse. And then I heard some very loud politicians and preachers and cultural experts, if you wish, talking about biblical family values. Well, I must admit I was mystified. What do they mean by biblical family values? Because I know that in the Bible there are plurality of those models and values, variety of family models. What is being arranged, for instance, in the book of Ruth is just one such example. It is called levirate marriage. Levirate marriage. And here is the explanation and a rule from the book of Deuteronomy 24. When brothers reside together and one of them dies without a son, the wife of the deceased shall not be married outside the family to a stranger. Her husband's brother shall go into her, taking her in marriage and performing the duty of his brother. The firstborn whom she bears shall carry the name of his deceased brother, and so that his name may not be blotted out of Israel. It's called levirate law or levirate marriage, from levir, leviri, that's from Latin, and it simply means brother-in-law. Or more precisely, husband's male relative. That'll be the exact meaning. In its ancient setting, it was a pragmatic model. It kept productive women in the family and also provided social support for widows. But it is completely foreign for us today. I would doubt that any of those big defenders of the biblical family values would follow this rule. And that is the point I want to make. Biblical family models are inapplicable for us. And furthermore, there has never been just one biblical model. In the Bible, for instance, you would probably know, if you open the Hebrew scripture, you will know that polygamy is definitely more common than monogamy. Certainly in the Hebrew Bible. Just remember patriarchs and their multiple wives. Furthermore, patrilocal marriages might be the most common. Patrilocal means simply that a wife joins the family of her husband. Patrilocal. But there are also prominent matrilocal marriages. For instance, Moses joins the family of his father-in-law. And even when marriage is first instituted in the book of Genesis, first book of the Bible, we read, "Therefore a man will leave his father and his mother and will be joined to his wife." That's matrilocal marriage. In the Bible, also endogamy is strongly encouraged. Those are marriages within a broader clan or tribe or religion. There are stern warnings against exogamy. People of faith should not marry just any strangers, definitely not pagans. Marrying strangers was forbidden. But then there are exogamy examples, and quite famous ones, like Ruth. She is a Moabite from another nation. Or Bathsheba, who was first married, she was most likely, or we are told that she was Israelite or Jewish, but she was first married to Uriah, the Hittite, in Jebus, in Jerusalem, before becoming the chief queen of King David. So that's an example of exogamy. Patriarchal families are overwhelmingly dominant, with patriarchal values. But interestingly, matriarchs, or senior wives, are picking, for instance, heirs and successors after their husbands. They are central for forming dynasties. So matriarchs played role. It is not matriarchate or matriarchal arrangement, but definitely they have a very powerful role. And to broaden our spectrum even further beyond marriage, I can mention children from the slave surrogate mothers, for instance. Without that kind of arrangement, there will be not 12 tribes of Israel, but only 8. What a pity it would be. Gad and Asher and Dan and Naphtali were from surrogate mothers, Zilpah and Bilhah. There were even same-gender family households. And again, one is right there in front of our eyes, Naomi and Ruth. And then David and Jonathan are male counterparts of the same gender relationship. And I preached about it some time ago. Marriages were arranged sometimes on quite a distance, like the servant of Abraham, by legends called Eliezer, brought Rebekah for Isaac from distant land. But they were also love-based, like Jacob and Rachel. Some were deceptive, like Judah and Tamar, or outright fraudulent, like Leah married to Jacob, and even marriages by rape, unfortunately, Dinah and Shechem. Some prophets like Hosea and Ezekiel used similar brutal sexual abuse as a metaphor for the relationship between Yahweh and his people. Yeah, using brutal abuse as metaphor or the way of talking about the relationship between Yahweh and his people, or Jerusalem for that case. But please don't use that particular biblical model. That'll be crime. And rabbis forbid reading these passages before people turn elderly, for good reason. And this is just a quick list from the top of my head of all those different arrangements, biblical family systems across many centuries of the Bible. There is clear lesson for us today here. There has never been one single biblical family model. And the plurality of biblical family models cannot, must not be transplanted and used today, because there is so much time in between that time when it was told, narrated, eventually written down and codified as Bible. Whoever is doing it, like saying that we must follow the biblical family model, whoever pretends doing it is a charlatan. Is weaponizing the Bible, not knowing it really, just doing caricature of it, for their own sinister, often bigoted ideological agendas. That is my negative message for us today, like what is not there or what we should not follow. But I also want to lift up a positive one today. Even as strange, foreign, fossilized biblical families might look to us, often it looks like that, they were nothing but. There was this wild diversity and great ability to accommodate those family systems to different times, to different circumstances, and even different personalities, if we can guess from what is preserved in writing. And under many different forms and models, there was one underlying emphasis: creating a closely knit and long-lasting space of security and well-being. That's what Naomi said there, preparing, it's in the first sentence, I think. My daughter, let me prepare for you a place of security and well-being. We might perhaps call it love and mutual support. And that is my final point, which I want to lift up for us today. We do not have any longer tribe-wide, like big families, multi-generational families, as they are often mentioned, especially in Hebrew Bible. Many of us here in New York City are alone or have small nuclear families. But our Christian tradition, from the apostolic times onwards, that tradition offers us congregations as alternative families. Don't we even call each other brothers and sisters? Our congregation is such a place of respect, love, care, loving care, and mutual support. And in that broader societal and political upheavals and uncertainties in which we find ourselves now, in this situation, and maybe even more so in near future, we might need desperately each other and our broader, yet closely knit community of respect, trust, care, and mutual support.